Well, hey, everybody. It's Mike here, and we're getting ready to do Mike in the Midwest, episode 176. Let's get going. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Mike in the Midwest, the mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. You can find us on all the podcasting platforms. I prefer Pocket Casts because I'm an old curmudgeon and don't change what I do. And I've been using that platform for probably a decade. But you can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us still on Google Podcasts here for a little bit. They're shutting their stuff down. They're going to be on YouTube. You can find us, let's see, what's come and gone. Stitcher used to be a thing, not a thing anymore. I'm trying to think of all the platforms that used to be around. Dr. Kai would help us out. I love that so many of our listeners have been around for so long that platforms that we started out on have come and gone years ago. Like for a long time ago, let's do a little history program. We used to do our live call-in shows on Sunday nights, and they were 2 hours long in our old house. When we used to have the show, and we only did them once a month. I think we did them on the third Sunday night of every month, because I think WDW Today with Matt, Mike, and Len, I want to say they did theirs on the fourth Sunday night. So we did ours on the third Sunday night to not conflict with theirs. And I didn't know how to do it otherwise. So my dad worked at a radio station. So I got a hold of a toaster. It's called a toaster. And what it does, it turns analog phone calls into digital signals onto your computer. And so honestly, we used our home. This is how long we've been doing this. We had a home phone, like, landline. It was our home house phone that, like, not a cell phone, the home phone line that people would call us at our house. On that night, I would take that phone line and plug it into this toaster thing that would plug into the computer. And when people would call in for the live call-in show to take calls, people would call the house. I'd have to give out our house phone number, which I never really said it was our house phone number, but I just gave out the number. But if you put two and two together, it was a 314 area code in St. Louis. You knew it was my house. People would call the number, and it didn't ring. It would light up like a radio station. So I pushed the button, and then it would transcode everything. Like that's how radio stations used to work back in the day. And then we'd take calls. I didn't know. I wasn't smart enough to figure out, like, the guys WDW Today were just using Skype. That was so much easier. And then I figured that out, and that's how we took the calls. That's still how we do it today, on a separate computer. But yeah, those were good times. But I mean, this is the intro, but I mean, you can listen to us wherever obviously you're a patron, you found us. But yeah, spread the word though, if you don't mind, let people know, because even though you know about the Be Our Guest podcast, hopefully there's still people out there that maybe haven't discovered our show, and maybe they would like our show. Maybe they wouldn't, but maybe they would. And I would love it if you'd, retweet or repost or whatever it's called nowadays on Facebook, share the latest episode. And if you wouldn't mind, again, because we're old as dirt. I get it. We're old as the star on top of that Christmas tree. That Christmas tree star is brand new, but it looks old. If you wouldn't mind giving us a rating and a review wherever you download the show. I noticed, because I don't look at the reviews very often. I'm terrible about that, because I'm terrible with feedback. I hate reading reviews. I hate stuff like that. It makes me, I'm just one of those people. I don't like to hear people talk. I hate praise. I hate that kind of stuff. I just hate when people say things. It just makes me super uncomfortable. But I know that that's how new listeners find shows. So if you don't mind, if you haven't in the last little bit, if you could go over to Apple Podcasts especially and leave a brief 5-star review this week, that would be wonderful, because I know some of them fall off after a while. I saw that we're doing great on Spotify yesterday, and I posted that on the social media. So thank you for that. Just thank you. I just want to say thank you. In this season of thankfulness, thank you for being you. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. I know that, this $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you're giving, could go somewhere else, but it means a lot to us. It lets us do the video feeds. It lets us keep the show going, the hosting. I mean, we're pushing 2,500 episodes in the archive. That's a big cost, but hey, it's worth it. This is what we love doing. We have our community, we get together, we get to do great things together. So thank you for that. So hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Holy cow. I just read that Christmas is less than 3 weeks away. I got to get shopping. I got to stop saying that though, because it's giving me hives. Pam brought that up, I think, on this week's shows. Ricky's not with us this week. It's Pam and Scott joining me. We do listener questions on Wednesday. We get some great questions. Friday was like a potpourri show. It's coming your way. We did a couple more listener questions on Friday because we had some questions about marathon weekend. I want to make sure I got those in right away for the folks that sent them in, so they have them in a timely manner, so they can prepare to have a good trip for marathon weekend. And then we got I don't know if you saw this, but Disney released all of the 2024 festivals for Disneyland. The entire festival schedule was released yesterday for Disneyland. So they talked about, the Pixar festival. It's going to take place from April to August out there. When the Food and Wine Festival is going to take place at DCA. All the festivals. So we talked about that. We talked about what we like about these festivals and which ones we'd like to maybe see come to Walt Disney World, the pluses and minuses. So we had some of that discussion on Friday as well. We were kind of off the rails this week. I hope you don't mind. We talked a little bit about our Christmas tree personalities. Are we folks that like just white plain lights on our Christmas tree? Or are you like me and a normal person? You like tinsel. You like garland. You like colored flashing lights. You want your Christmas tree to have a personality. No, I can't say that. You can like whatever you like, because my wife loves the white bulbs that don't flash, everything symmetrical and looking like it's in a catalog. But if you do watch the feed at youtube.com/BRGS podcast here during the Christmas season, you will see the tree that my mother-in-law got me. This is what I asked for from my mother-in-law for my birthday. She came through with this Christmas tree for the studio. And I've decorated exactly like I like, with the silver garland, the tinsel, the 1950s kind of looking star on the top, the bubble lights. I love that look, that aesthetic from like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, kind of 80s too. It's wild. The flashing colored lights is the way to go. And in my book, but that's what I like. That's what I grew up with in my house. And of course, my white ceramic Christmas tree on top of the fridge full of Coke Zeros. That's how I roll here in the BOGP Studios in St. Peters, Missouri. But let me know what you think. So that's what I want to know, especially in the feedback for next week's show, because we'll still be before Christmas. Patreon.com/BRGS podcast. Where do you fall on that aesthetic? Are you like my wife, that is the very symmetrical? She has bows on our tree in the living room. See, I don't get to do anything with the tree in the living room. It's like a Hallmark movie tree. It's like something you would have at a model home if you were like selling a house. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. You might have seen on my Instagram. I take pictures like of the living room sometimes of the TV, and you'll see it. It is gorgeous. But like my trees are like something you would see in Christmas Vacation, or I don't know, just like an 80s catalog or something. It reminds me of growing up. It's not perfect. It's just kind of gaudy, and I like that look. But where do you fall on that spectrum? Do you have tinsel? Do you have garland? Or are you more like my wife? She's bows and white lights, nothing flash. She hates flashing lights. She hates colored lights. Like on the outside of our house, if I had my druthers, I'd have the big bulbs, opaque, big colored bulbs that are not in a pattern, that are kind of haphazardly colored, laid out across the gutters. That's what my house looked like as a kid. Nowadays, there's icicle lights, there's white lights, there's the LEDs, there's all kinds. But I would just have like the big old fashioned opaque bulbs that get hot, not in a certain pattern, not just like, red, white. On our house, we have red and white bulbs, red, white, red, white, red, white. And they're kind of translucent, and they're not super bright because they're like LEDs. They're okay. I mean, it looks pretty. I'll take a picture and post it somewhere. It is super pretty, but it doesn't have the same aesthetic. I don't know. So where do you fall on that? Let me know. Patreon.com/BRGS podcast. Because I'm not kidding. That is a personality test, if there ever is one. So let me know, because we'll share that next week and see kind of because I think like the folks that leave feedback here on the Mike in the Midwest shows, we're all kind of rallying together as a community, and I love to see that. Also, come over to the Discord, and I know we have a private Discord here for the patrons, which is great. So the link's right here over on the Patreon page. If you want to use that, you can. But come over to the one for the podcast as a whole. We're getting more action over there, which is great, and it's kind of a nice little community clubhouse. I like to think of it as. And we have a kind of a main room called the living room. So come on over there. Just go to beourguestpodcast.com. The link is on the right side. Join us, and we can kind of have a conversation over there. Maybe even post a picture of your tree. Show us. Are you my wife that has to, oh no, that can't go on my tree. That isn't pretty enough. That has to go downstairs on your tree. That's ugly. That goes, that didn't make the cut. Take that down to the office and put that on your little sad tree. And I'm like, okay, fine. It's fine. Anyway, hopefully having a great holiday season. And maybe you're in the same boat I am, that you have to have your own tree because your aesthetic maybe doesn't match your mate's. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one like this. Who knows? So anyway, you're going to get 2 great shows this week. We had a good time recording those for you. It was great to have Scott on the shows this week. He jumped in. He's living the bachelor life. His wife's on a work trip for the entire week. So it's him and M back home. Also hope you enjoyed the Monday show with Scott talking about his 40th birthday trip out to Alani. I learned a lot, and he was dying to do that show ever since he got back a couple of months ago. He's like, Mike, I'm going to talk about Alani. I got so much to share. We're probably going to make that into 3 different shows. So this one focused basically on just the resort itself. He wants to talk about all the cool stuff he did, like going to the Dole Plantation and going to see Pearl Harbor and going to the North Shore and all this other stuff. So we'll continue that here in not too long. So what else is going on around these parts this Saturday? We're going down to Cape Girardeau, Missouri. We're going to go south of St. Louis, about 2 hours or so, down Interstate 55 to Southeast Missouri State University. Mallory's High School Cheer Squad is in the state finals. They're in the final 4 for the state championship in cheerleading. So we're at least going to come in 4th place for the state of Missouri in cheerleading championships because we're in the final 4. But we hope to hang a banner and come in 1st place. They have been working super hard this week. They've been practicing every day for the last few weeks. But this is it. This is HE double hockey sticks week. They've been calling it because they're just killing themselves this week. And then we'll have a big send off on Saturday morning. They'll get in the bus. They head out at about 10 in the morning, head down there. We'll head down about 11 right behind them, and they'll compete, and we'll see what happens. So we're excited for that on Saturday. And then, of course, Saturday, I'll be watching, I guess, on my phone since I won't be at home, the Army-Navy football game, which is always a cool thing because I think it's such a great thing because these football players are special because they're in the service academy, right? And they're not like all these other football players. Don't get me wrong. You guys know how I feel about college football. I tell my wife, if I wasn't married to you, I'd be married to college football. That's how much I love college football. But, and I'm only half joking, but Army Navy is the best of kind of what amateur sports is. You see if you're into sports over the last week, you've noticed that these student athletes have the opportunity at this point to jump into what's called the transfer portal. These kids can go to other schools if they feel like it. Now it's a new thing, so they can switch schools. They can jump and declare that they want to go to a different school. You can't do that if you're at a service academy like Army Navy because you've made a commitment to serve after you graduate from the academy. But these guys leave it all on the line, and the pomp and circumstance of the flyovers, the march out, just that these are the best among us. They will lay it on the line to keep us all safe. No matter what you believe, we're all Americans, and that they protect us, and that they beat each other's heads. Army Navy, they beat each other's heads in for 60 minutes on that football field, but then at the end of the game, they are brothers in arms, and they come back together, and we're all on the same team. We're all Americans. I love it. I mean, I love that game. It's America's game, and it's so cool. So if you get a chance, check it out. It's going to be up at Gillette Stadium on Saturday. I think it's at 3 Eastern. So check it out on TV if you can. It's one of the coolest things there. I love it. And it's the only football game this Saturday. They get their own weekend, which is excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, so let's hit the feedback from last week. I talked about 50 years and a million blessings. Holy cow, I'm 50. I've made it a week and we're still here. And can you believe it? This time next week or next month, we'll be at Walt Disney World for Marathon Weekend. I am so worried about the marathon because I'm not going to get above 13 miles. I don't know how the backside of Sunday is going to look. It's going to be a mess. I don't think I'll finish, but we'll see. I've never not finished, but this could be the year. But I'm 50, so who knows? All right, Ashley says, let's see here. We got Ashley's comment from last week. She says, I listened to this one over on the main feed. Oh, because I put this one out on the main feed. Yes. I was like, how did that happen? It was such a bright spot in my week. You have such a positive and uplifting spirit. You're an inspiration. You have made your dream job a reality and live life to the fullest. Cheers to 50 years, Mike. Well, actually, thank you. And here's the thing. I couldn't do this without you guys. I just tell people all the time because, you know, you guys all do the same thing, right? We have the cheer parents. So anytime we go to a football game, now football's over, now it'll be basketball. Saturday will be all bundle of nerves as we watch the girls compete for the cheer competition, you know, state. We'll do a couple of routines. We all sit together, we huddle. We'll probably have lunch together somewhere, I'm sure, maybe dinner. But, you know, you make your friends with the cheer parents, but we'll talk about this stuff. And, you know, I tell people, I've been so lucky to get to do what because I have the most weird job when people ask me what I do. Because I tell them I get to help people go to places like Walt Disney World. I get to help people go to places like Disneyland. I get to help people go on cruises. And I get to do a podcast. So I get to talk about these people who get to do amazing things. And I love this because I always wanted to work in radio. And this is the new form of radio. I can talk to folks who listen in Japan or listen in Australia or listen in the UK out of my basement. I have the coolest job. And I only have it because of your support. I mean, you might not think $5 a month means a lot or $10 a month here on the Patreon. It does. You're helping somebody in St. Charles, Missouri live his dream. And I am eternally grateful for that. So thank you. And hopefully we're doing some good. All of us hopefully the mojo comes back to you. And I appreciate you so much. All right, let's get to some more feedback. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that very much. Michael said, or let's see, Dennis says, happy birthday, Mike. I hope you had a great day celebrating the milestone with your family. Don't let the number bother you. I think your approach to reflecting on your blessings was the right way to go. It was really cool to hear you reflect on how you got to where you want to be. Thanks for giving us a steady stream of Disney-related content for all these years. Well, thank you, Dennis. And Dennis is also a content creator as well. Star Wars Universe, he takes care of that stuff. And Dennis is just a great guy. I mean, Dennis has been around with us forever. He's a Mizzou fan too, which means he's a good guy. But just glad to know Dennis, and thank you, Dennis, for those kind words. I really appreciate it. Trisha, who has an elf in the shelf running wild around her house up in Wisconsin, says, being a Patreon supporter costs less than one of Ricky's Starbucks drinks. I agree. Bell for that. And it's totally worth it. I also look forward to both this and the BOGP episodes. Well, thank you. Also, I side with you on tree decor. We use colored lights and a variety of ornaments on our family tree, and I have a special blue tinsel tree that is only Star Wars ornaments. Oh, hang on. I think I have something for you. Let's see.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
How about that? I have a little Darth Vader on the board. My favorite Christmas decoration I have is from my late grandmother, a motion sensor Santa face that shouts as it only has one volume level, loud, ho, ho, ho. Watching guests get startled by it gives me holiday joy. Trisha, this is why we're friends, because that would be something I would love. One, because I love stuff that my grandparents gave me that have passed. Like, just because when I have something from my grandparents that are no longer with me, every time I see it, every time I interact with anything like that, I love it. Like I have Christmas ornaments and stuff. I have tons of stuff from my grandparents that are gone now that I still just keep around. But the fact that a big old Santa or something would be like, oh, scare the crowd out of people, I couldn't stop laughing. That's my personality. Michael Corbett. Okay, Mike, I love the podcast and I think you're amazing, but the pity party for turning 50 must stop. I'll be turning 60 in less than 2 months. It is overused, but you really are just as old or young as you feel. I too feel so blessed. I am also having struggles with my knees, but my health is overall really good. I have 4 amazing kids and 4 grandkids who are my world. I am also grateful to be retiring this year at the end of 36 years of teaching middle school computer science. Michael, God bless you. 36 years of teaching middle school. You should be knighted. I could only make 17. I was like, tap out. I could have gone more, honestly, but I wanted to try something different. But man, 36 years of teaching middle school. Holy God, in computer science. That means if you taught 36 years, if you started in computer science 36 years ago, what were you teach? I mean, it wasn't even about a Commodore 64. That's awesome. Seriously, Michael, that's awesome. And the kids are where it is. I'm telling you, continuing. But I will stay active, working part-time and thanking the Lord every day. Saving up for Podcast Cruise 2025. Thanks for everything. Michael Corbett, Lehigh, Utah. Seriously, I love it. And congratulations on the upcoming retirement. And think about the legacy as a teacher in 36 years you are leaving. That is, I am just proud to call you a friend because I just think that is great. And yeah, I'll stop complaining about being 50. I mean, because the way I look at it is I've had so many more blessings in 50 years than most people are ever going to get in a lifetime. So what do I have to complain about? But the knees stink. And I'm going to find out was that January 8th, the day of the marathon? Yeah, I'm going to be needing some WD-40 that day or something. All right, so let's hit the main story of the day. It's not a big one. I just wanted to share this one because I kind of teased it a couple of weeks ago and I didn't get to it. Getting to Christmas. So I think it was around Christmas 2000. God, I'm so bad with years. 2008, 2009. It was when the Nintendo Wii was super hot. So Paige was probably about 9 or 10, I'm guessing. Now Paige is 27 now, so let's put this all in perspective. Running a basketball team, living up in Chicago. So it's a long time ago, but I still have the Nintendo Wii in the basement right on the other side of this wall hooked up to the TV because I keep old stuff. But same one too. But I wanted one of these things pretty bad because like you'd seen them on, if you remember the craze of the Nintendo Wii, it was like a phenomenon. Now you got to remember when I grew up, because again, 50, right? So I was born in 73. I was at that age where when I was a kid, the gift you wanted at Christmas, it went like cycles. I was at that perfect age where you had to get the Atari 2600. And I did. Like when I probably got that when I'd say like 7 or 8. And then I quickly graduated to a Commodore 64. Now I never did get a Nintendo NES or anything like that. I stayed with a Commodore 64 from the time I was like 9 or 10 all the way through high school because I used it for gaming, but I also ran a BBS, a bulletin board where people called, and like I ran a huge like system out of St. Louis. It was the biggest bulletin board in the St. Louis area code, 314 area code, where people would call. It wasn't exactly legal, where you could upload and download games. And so I always had games. We always had great conversations in our message boards. It was called the Far Side. First, it was called Lefty's Hideout, and then it was called the Far Side. But it was just a cool interactive way to meet people. And it really was kind of predecessor to podcasting. I met so many people through that. But I had like multiple, like 1541 drives, 1571 drives, 1581 drives. If you know anything about Commodores, it had a RAM expansion unit. I had an SX64, like a portable 64 that I'd use sometimes for other things. And it was all in my bedroom. It was wild. I wish I had a picture of my bedroom from back in the day because it was like a nerd's paradise because I'm still a nerd. But anyway, that's the history of kind of where I came from. I'm in that age where like the consoles, right? So you wanted that. And also, I'm trying to think if this all fell in the right order, but I did get a PlayStation 2 when that came out. And I was kind of hooked on that too for a while. The PlayStation 2, I got the Madden game with that and I played the crud out of them. That's when the RAMs were really good. And I'd play Madden a lot. But let's get back to the Wii because this is the one that I really, really wanted. Because it was like, it was different than anything else, right? Because The one I really wanted I wanted the Wii because of the sports games, that packing game that had like bowling and golf, and the one where you play the sports. But really, bowling is what I wanted. So, and Paige wanted it too. We wanted it together because Paige was super active. She always played sports. I wanted it because I want to play it against her because she was like 10. I was like a big kid, still am. So we told Pam, like, this is what we want for Christmas. Can Santa bring us a Nintendo Wii? That's what we asked for. And at the time, they were super hard to get, as I recall. Like, they were really hard to get. Like, they were not, you couldn't just buy them off the shelf. You had to be at the right time. You had to like be, looking and finding out like when a Target would have a delivery, like what time do they get their stock, and maybe a GameStop or a Best Buy. My wife is good at this stuff. Like, she loves that stuff. So apparently she got her hands on one. And long story short, come Christmas morning, boom, under the tree, bam, we got a Wii. We lost our minds. So we open it up, we got the Wii, we got a few accessories, like we got the little, because there were, the Wii remotes took batteries. And so we got like little things where you could, instead of batteries, they're like rechargeable packs where you could sit them in there and like recharge them, and you don't have to keep putting batteries in. But we got batteries to get us going. So we had like little rechargeable packs, and we got a couple of extra games and stuff like that. But here's the thing. I remember like when we opened it, Paige and I, it was like we were siblings, even though I was her stepdad and she was my kid. Like, we were high-fiving, we were screaming. When we opened it, it took me back to when I was like 8 or 9 or 6 or 7, when I opened the Atari and when I opened my Commodore because I got both of those on Christmas morning under the tree. Same reaction I had with Paige. And I still have pictures. I'll try to find the picture of when we got it and post it on Instagram this week, because I had that exact same reaction. That's how bad I wanted this, even as an adult. I wanted this Wii. So we got it. Now, remember, at the time I was a school teacher, right? This was bad because I had off the entire next week because it was, you're off for Christmas break. And so was Paige. I played this thing non-stop until like January 4th or something, because we did not have school. I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to do anything. So I play because I have this personality that I got to play something or I got to do something so I'm really good at it. So the bowling game I became obsessed with, because the problem is with bowling on that, if you play the Wii bowling, like if you get a certain average, your bowling ball gets like a glitter or something, gets like stars. I think you gotta get like a 210 average or something. And so I would keep bowling. Pam would be like up, because we hooked it up downstairs at our old house, and Pam would go upstairs, go to bed. And it'd be like 2:30 in the morning. And I'd be still downstairs. I'd start playing it like 8 o'clock. And she'd be like, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd still be downstairs bowling. And she'd be like, you coming to bed? No, a couple more games. I had to keep taking ibuprofen. That's how bad my arm, because the thing was, it was a motion game, right? I remember my arm was killing me. I thought I might have hurt my rotator cuff, honestly. And I was a pitcher in high school and threw a lot of innings, but I seriously thought I might have to have Tommy John surgery after that week, because I played it so much. But I loved it. And then there was like there was like another Wii Sports, like a Wii Sports 2 with basketball. When we got that game, God, we played basketball forever. That was like on the next disc, like a couple years later. But I just remember we had that excitement, and Paige and I played for that Christmas break. We played Wii like nonstop. I bet you we played 10 hours. I am not kidding. For that Christmas break, I bet you Paige and I played the Wii for probably, and I am not exaggerating, 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day. I remember we'd have pizza rolls down the basement. And that was the fun thing about it, was that it was almost like replaying my childhood, but with Paige. And so I wonder if she has those same kind of memories, because it reminded me of my Atari memory and then my Commodore memory. Because when you got that when you're a kid, you have no other responsibilities. And as a teacher, I didn't really have many responsibilities because I was off work. I didn't have a job like I do now where I got to, check in all the time. It was a great week. So I wonder if you've ever had did you get a console like that where you got sucked in really hard there for like right after you got it at Christmas? Here's the other thing I wanted to bring up. One other story. So this takes me back to my dad. So my dad worked in construction when I was a kid. Before he got into radio, he was a cement mason. So he would put in like driveways and basements. So did my grandpa. They were cement masons. So they would, pour concrete. Well, in the wintertime, once the ground froze, you can't do that. So my dad would be off until the ground kind of unfroze for a few, maybe a couple months in the winter when it got really cold. So this wasn't at Christmas. This was like probably in January, like when it was super cold in St. Louis. We downloaded this game on our Commodore 64. We got a new game and it was called Pitfall 2. Now, Pitfall we loved on the Atari, right? Everybody knows Pitfall, right? You jump over the crocodile heads and you go get the gold and it just goes forever. And we loved Pitfall. But we got Pitfall 2 for the Commodore and it was a great game, right? But it was a game that was based on like exploring all these caves. And it was kind of like one of the very first, Pitfall was kind of like an endless runner, but Pitfall 2 was even more of an endless exploration game. It had like this little guy named Clip Claw. He was like a lion or something, but you had to kind of explore around these caverns and get these clues and get these treasures. Here's the thing. I can't believe this happened, but this was me later. I remember one day I was going to school. I was probably in middle school. I left for school. My dad was playing that game when I left for school. I came home from school. I got home from school like at 3:00. My dad was still playing that game at the same spot. My dad played that game the entire day I was at school. I don't know if he stopped and got lunch. He was hooked on Pitfall 2. And I mean, he couldn't work because the ground was frozen. He was off and they got pay during the winter time because they put money away during the summer when work was good. He played that game all day. And here's the other kicker. He played it on the SX64, which was like our little portable computer. It had like a 3.5-inch little color screen. I'll have to try to find a picture of this. It was tiny. And he was sitting there playing this game. But I mean, that's what we did back in the day. It was like in the late 80s. But my dad loved that game. He loved Pitfall 2, and he was bound and determined to find his way around the end of that game. He wanted to find the end of that game. I don't know if he ever did. Maybe I'll have to get him and try to find him an emulator and get him Pitfall 2 when the Rams season ends and maybe he has a little bit more time. But then that's like giving like a drug addict crack. I can't give my dad that game. I'd never see him again because he was hooked. I remember he had that zombie look when I got home. So anyway, that's the story of getting the Wii, and that's the story of my dad getting hooked on Pitfall 2. But do you have a story like that? Let us know and let's share over at patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. Just a funny story, but that was the time we got the Wii back in about 2007, 2008. But share your stories. We'll share them next week and we'll get back together again. I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.